Hello, everybody. This is going to be sort of a casting style. There's no chat or anything that I'm reacting to. Also, I'll never be a streamer, so fuck that. Casting style video to cover the season 2 bracket here in a minute. Obviously, this is a recording, so if you're watching this, it already technically happened. But I figured, maybe half the people that are interested in what the bracket will be won't be sitting in on the thing. So give people an opportunity to have a recording option that's got some commentary on it. Let me just get my little intro thing out of the way here. Got to shill a little bit as always. Hello there, and welcome to Camo Nut Supremacy, YouTube channel that focuses on Arma Reforger and the competitive community for the game. I am your host, Bambi Sandy, and this is our casting style video that'll cover the ARCL Season 2 bracket announcement that'll start roughly in about 10 minutes. If you represent a team in the competitive community or you believe that you'd be a good candidate for an interview, you can join our Discord through the link in the description and reach out that way. The aim of the Discord is to have a space outside of a specific tournament host or a team or even a game, really, for the community to interact with one another. We're planning on hosting a series of debates about the game and scene through there. We take pride in supporting honest and critical opinions with both the game and scene as a whole. So if you'd like to participate in pushing the competitive culture for the game in a positive direction, please do join. We aren't allowed to reach out to teams that are participating in ARCL Season 2 for research through their Discord or in general. Which would definitely include stuff like general polling about how people are kind of feeling, for instance, about Season 2 as it's going or beforehand, and demographics building. So no reaching out to see like who the star players are or star roles or functions are with each team. We're also going to assume that that includes reaching out for team interviews to boost the visibility of each team. So if you're a fan of our content and want to participate in pushing competitive culture for the game by getting your team interviewed, which arguably doubles as like a recruiting tool, please join our Discord and reach out. The Discord isn't just meant for leadership people that are trying to kind of set up scrimmages and stuff like that. It's intended for everyone, kind of at every level, and should serve as a nice backup tool in case of an emergency. That way, if you wake up and find that your team's disintegrated overnight, you can rely on this unbiased space to reach out for another one. Camo Nut Supremacy is a collective media project / community for the scene and won't ever host its own tournament. Our content doesn't feature crazy overlays or editing purposefully. So aside from technical issues and bits on the front and back ends of the recordings, we leave everything in the middle for transparency, which includes all of my lip smacks and sipping from energy drinks. That high fidelity. So anyways, just kind of with that out of the way, just kind of hanging out and waiting. They posted the announcement for the bracket thing in a way that makes it look like it's public. It's going to be incredible egg on my face if it ends up just being for team reps. I actually kind of agree with them making an event out of it. In squad tournaments would just throw out the PNG so you could see what team you were playing first. Feel like that was kind of boring. It's interesting that they're doing this as an event for this one, though, because I feel like holding an event for it builds hype, kind of sets expectations. None of the teams really know about each other. This thing is so new that there's really no culture that goes behind like the hype and setting up expectations and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I'm not completely against it. If this is from like if this is a tradition thing, Like, hey, there's no real purpose to these right now, but every year when we hold the season, we're gonna do this. 2-3 years from now, everyone's gonna know all the other teams that are kind of in the space, and it'll have more meaning. I'm a fan of it. Um, so I kind of speaking to both sides of the spectrum, I suppose. Something that's really interesting. Uh, car alarm going off outside. That's interesting. Something that's interesting about this, from kind of an outside looking, I don't have a staff role or anything like that. I'm sometimes critical of things that ARCL as an organization or as a tournament host decides to do, so I'm likely never going to get kind of an inside glance or a behind the scenes glance for the organization. But um, something that's interesting is doing a roster announcement kind of insinuates that the rosters are set in stone. That like, hey, I signed up for the 20v20 bracket, so I'm going to face, they'll announce this team, I'm going against them first. What does that mean if, the membership of both teams that are signed up can completely change? There's no incentive or consequence for like replacing half of your team with like mercs. So that's really interesting. And then too, like I'd spoken to, there's kind of a culture perspective here where, it's not like squad where, you had to slot into explicit roles on the team. You couldn't have 15 guys with light machine guns. You couldn't have everyone with sniper rifles. You had to have, if I was a squad lead, if I'm going to have 6 people in my squad, they have to slot into the available roles that are on offer there, which typically ends up being like a medic and a rifleman and a grenadier role and stuff. So there's kind of there's something to follow there, and over time those roles build out into, from like a team structure or even like these bracket announcement perspective, where like, oh, we're going against that team. They've got the best anti-tank roles, in this whole thing. We really got to be careful with that. There's no limitation that you need to kind of. So you're just going against a blob of people that could be doing anything, which makes it kind of hard to track from like my perspective. And then two, you kind of have to wonder if you're starting to ask philosophical questions like that or structure questions. What's in it for the teams that are kind of tuning in? Um, how there was a season one, obviously, and supposedly there's preseason events where like, teams have an opportunity to sign up for scrimmages through ARCL in a preseason fashion, and that gives ARCL an opportunity to see if the weapons are balanced or whatever. But how many matches were played in season one? Which then kind of feeds into a much larger question. If the average team in season one played 3 or 4 matches, because that you beat a team and then you move up in the bracket, and then you beat a team or lose and then you move up in the bracket, and if you lose, maybe you go to a losers bracket or something like that. How many of these teams have done even played against the other teams here? How many of the teams even scrimmage? And I think that goes to like, what value is there in kind of generally holding these bracket announcements? What is that really supposed to mean when you see that you're going up against another team? You've never played against that other team. You don't know anything about them. And even if you did play against the team once, like, it's going to be a different map and different balancing for the weapons now. So like, there's no expectations to really go on there. that kind of makes sense. Can I join this thing? What is this music? Oh, I have my sound going through the wrong device. That's funny. This is some sick music. It's also really loud. Jesus.
Oh, sorry about that. Ooh, a little bit carried away. Right, who else can we get here? Who have we got? Who we got? Don't actually know that I need anybody else to be in the speakers, but if any of you staff, raise your hands like polite boys. Say hi. Hey, I want to talk. Hi. Yeah, okay, so if I can I make you a person that's allowed to speak? Yep, there we go. Invite to speak. I'll just do the invites. You obviously don't have to. I'm very happy to talk. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, there we go. Jamsify. Hello, hello. Jamsify. I don't know how you see it on your screen, but there should be a little thing that will show that you've been invited to talk.
Or I guess good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whichever part of the world you are.
Yes, absolutely. We'll get up and rolling here in a few minutes, guys. I'll do a little screen share and we'll draw the brackets right in front of your lovely eyes. Oh, open up this chat here as well. It didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. I just don't know how my phone works. I'm getting old.
Ah, you're okay, mate. Me too. I'm sculling this Red Bull like no one's business just now. Like, fucking mate. I've tried to quit caffeine today, failed.
Yeah, it didn't work, right?
Yeah, aye, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Okay, so give it another few minutes, guys. See if we get anyone else in. Audience is filling up.
Yeah, I see a lot of known faces.
Yep. Hello,
Infinite Punky
ARCL.
Screamer, the TTG guys. See some guru names. Dutch Flex in chat. Here we go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dutch
Oh
Phoenix, you
god.
fucking madmen. You crazy fuckers.
Oh no, here we
What did you
go.
just call me?
Yeah, we did that on purpose, Powder. We saw you coming.
Nice. Alrighty.
Hey, 2 goblins are better than 1.
Here we go.
Yeah, good match just now between DTG and 41. Again, sorry for the hot mic. Whoops.
Infinite Sharp says I'm still working on the ARCL mod. I'm closer to the problem now.
What a
So,
legend.
yeah. A known legend.
I know. Hope he enjoys his extra spicy Discord role he'll get for helping the team out. I hope it doesn't go straight to his head. You're an ARCL legend now, okay? Now don't go robbing banks. Right. Let's see. Mark, I'm going to send you a wee invite to speak thing. Obviously, you don't have to, but I'll put you in the thing just so you're. There you go, mate. There you go. Hiya. Up at the big boys table. There we go. Pop Hyper in there as well.
Where's Leafy? Wait, let me take him.
I think he's watching porn.
Ah, fuck, not again.
I know, man. Jesus.
Is that all he does? Coding and watching porn, or?
Man's got his finger on the pulse of the future. Absolutely. Yeah, Leafy's here. He's with us.
Oh yeah, he's there. Oh
Yeah,
fuck.
he's right there, man. You are getting old.
Why didn't he? No, I'm fucking blind.
That emoji. Oh my god.
I really need to stop drinking.
Hyper, I've put you in the thing, the invite to speak thing. I don't know where it comes up on your screen or whatever, but
Yeah, on top side.
Like to see attachment. Do I want to?
Dutch guys versus the rest of the event. Wow.
That'll be a problem. Set on my phone
Right.
if I can make it to my PC. Hyper, I'm also on my phone. Works
There are
fine.
an incredible amount of Dutch people here. It's great.
Yeah, but,
Appreciate
yeah.
the fondness that you have for the competition. It's good. We've also we've got our first outside of the kind of EU's North America's participation for this year. We've got teams from Indonesia competing in the league for the first time this year. So whoa,
Incredible.
yeah, that's us, man.
Yeah.
Spreading our wings around the world. That's us.
No, we have a few
Indonesia, welcome to the shit show. Alrighty. Yep, it's 2 more minutes, guys. We'll try and roll for just after 10 past the hour, whatever part of the world you're in just now. Right, Devil, I'm guessing you're in here somewhere. No, maybe not. Mr. Jones, what's happening, mate? Yeah, what's happening, dude? I encountered your mix on the Hog servers, man. That was cool as shit. Well done, mate. I know it's probably what you do for a fucking living anyway and stuff like that, you know, but still, well done, mate. Bringing a bit of culture to the Hogs. Ah, you're all good, mate. No problem. It's just nice riding around in your car in the middle of the desert with some fucking fat bassy tunes going, man. It's great. Alrighty, we're nearly there. Nearly there, guys.
What is this, a fucking jerk off instruction video?
Jerk off instruction video.
We got an Italian guy saying he doesn't understand shit. Non capisce un cazzo.
Legend does say the Ireland layout is we're so close, mate. You wouldn't believe how close we are.
Do y'all want to see the Yavron layout?
Can someone give Dry Devil the Goblin's roll?
Goblins. I think he's got it. No, hang on. What am I looking at here? Where's goblins? He's got it already.
Fast as fuck, boy.
Yeah, I know someone's got quicker fingers than me. Absolutely. Brr. Right. Okay. Let's get this show on the road, guys. Welcome to our announcement stage for the ARCL Season 2 bracket draw. So, before we get into the actual bracket draw, we've had some new information coming to light, which is going to affect the nature of the competition this season. Now, this is based on the best that we can do with the resources that we have available. There are only so many heavyweight teams based on the fact that there's only so many servers and only so many teams that can field more than 20 players on a night. We would love it if this was not the case. However, our heavyweight bracket has not been as populated as the middleweight and lightweight brackets. So bear in mind that when you see the brackets being drawn here, that there are some changes that will be reflected if you are part of the heavyweight teams. And we'll explain a little bit of that as we go. But we've had to do this effectively to make sure that our bracketed format is actually there, that it makes sense, that the teams are even, and that we can run the competition. The alternatives that we've thought about in terms of making the competition something that doesn't rely upon a structured bracket format are not feasible with the time that we have available. For instance, if we were to run 16 lightweight teams in a points format where every team would play each other at least once across the course of the season, then you're talking like 100 games, something like that. Given that we can only realistically manage one game from each sort of bracket per weekend, and we don't want to make the requirements so that teams would have to then play different games at different times of day. We just don't have the level of game masters to be able to run that kind of competition in future. It's certainly something we would like to do, but it's beyond us to manage that. So we have to stick with a bracketed league format for this season, which has obviously meant some of the changes that we've made over the last day to make sure that we have a bracketed system which works. So without further ado, let me not fuck this and get our screen share up and running. I am going to be sharing the live competition bracket. If you don't want to watch the video for whatever reason, then this information should become available on the ARCL website as soon as the bracket draw is complete. So you're all welcome to tune in to the stream. It should be running just now. Sorry about it. 720p at 30 frames a second. What is this, 2012? Right, okay. So I'll give you another little second to get the stream running. So this is part of what we've been working on in the background as well. We have an entirely freshly built operations hub to run the season this year. Our main man, Lethe, has been coding like an absolute demon over the last 2.5 weeks to create an entirely fresh proposition for the operations team to manage the league. And it came out looking really fucking sweet. And I'm sure you guys would agree it looks fucking great. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that we obviously won't really be showing you for security reasons, but some of it will become available. But this just allows us to have a much better as to the state of the league. And then when it comes to the in-game matchups, we're going to have much stricter control of behaviours which could constitute cheating. And that's been done through the building of a custom anti-cheat mod, which is strictly for the ARCL, which plugs into our systems, which plugs into the website. And that's going to allow us to be much more fine-tuned when it comes to any aspects of illegitimate behaviour. So one of the complaints from last year, we have, I hope, dealt with that. There's also going to be additional mods on the server, which will help us to do our job a lot easier. But we have a fully functioning anti-cheat system now, and so far as we can tell, it works fucking sweet. So here we go, guys. Let's do the draw. Oh, you can't hear the drum roll. Oh, you can't hear it. My noise suppression's too good. So I'm drumming. You can drum along with me. The lightweight championship automatic draw. Boom. So here we are, guys. One of the things we have to bear in mind with this is that we've got a couple of teams who are still just about there when it comes to their participation, but we haven't been able to sign them up fully yet. So within the 2 weeks before the competition goes live, we do have 2 slots that need to be filled in the lightweight bracket. We will be doing that in due course, so do not panic. We have teams ready and available to do this with, but as you can see just now, here is your bracket. Nomad, unannounced competitors that we'll fix up. DTG versus Tatgru. Warpigs versus Resdel 14. Athena versus Finn Arma X. Reforger Hungary versus Super Army Soldiers. Operation Comedy Unit versus Commando V. Portugal Gaming versus Royal Marines Commando. And Blue Rebels Command versus, again, the other open slot that we have. So these will be filled. That's your bracket for the lightweight competition. Now, I believe what we're going to be doing, match 1, first match weekend. So from the 25th onwards, that's the first game that will be played in the lightweight division. Second weekend, third weekend, fourth weekend, on you go. So we'll get the dates locked in and create Discord events for all of you guys to get your members to be invited to, so that there's no crossed wires. But if you can imagine that from the first weekend onwards, that's how it's going to flow. The very last match for the first round of the brackets for lightweight will commence on the 8th weekend. So I'm not even going to try and guess what that would be just now in my head. But as I said, we'll get all the dates wrapped up and all you guys will be invited so that you know exactly what's going to be happening with your teams. So there we go, guys, lightweight bracket. And for the 20v20 bracket, here we go. Let's click the button. Triple Threat Tactical versus Rubber Band Rangers. 40 Squad versus 40v1 Parabellum. Rome Company versus Goblins. The Grunet versus Grey Shadow Actual. Dutch Phoenix versus 63E. 6 Special Forces Group versus Hogs of War. Titan Milsim versus JTF6 TAC 26. And the 76th Airborne Division versus Viper Squadron. So once again, that is the same format as we've had. Match 1 weekend commencing 25th July, every weekend after that to get the first round of the brackets out of the way, and then we continue down. So guys, what we are thinking we're going to do, because obviously there's going to be a discrepancy now between what the heavyweight teams felt that they were doing and what we're now having to achieve. So I'm thinking the only way to maintain this as fair is to have the 20v20 teams also basically become the 20v20 plus bracket. Now, that's not to suggest that any team here has to individually go out and find more members to play in this bracket. Not the case. But we now do have teams in the 20v20 bracket who will have more members signed up for the competition. For instance, Titan Milsim had wanted to play in the heavyweight bracket. Going to open this up. The middleweight bracket. On any game night, which will obviously be announced well in advance, if you have the ability to bring more than 20 players to your game, and the other team can also do so, then you can up the numbers in your team up to a maximum of 60 players per team. Now, we don't anticipate that anybody's going to be bringing 60 players to these games. However, exactly, yes, North Korea, yep. It could go up to 60 if you really, really want. If you can pull in 60 people for your team and you get another team who wants to bring in 60, then, oh boy, we've got a fucking comp, right? But there's going to be teams here who can comfortably field 30, 35, something along those lines. So the only way we can manage this with the teams that we have would be, if you want, you can utilize the free agents role to bring more members in for your games. this will be on a per game basis. If you participate in the first round of the bracketed draw in a 30v30, then the next game is not automatically determined as a 30v30. It's going to be purely based on what both teams can bring to each round of their bracket at any given time, with that information being communicated to the reps and the staff. And then we will make the arrangements to ensure that you can play with as many players as you can field at any given moment. Now, again, as I've said, some teams are going to be much more suited to do that. So unfortunately, this is just the way we've got to set up the league just now in order to ensure that the brackets remain even. And as I said at the start, if we could have ran another form of competition that gets rid of the bracketed format, we would love to do so, but the logistical requirements of that are just not feasible on our end in terms of the amount of games and the amount of staff that we would have to manage each game. So, I believe now that should mean that the competition bracket is set on the website, the arclhub.com. You guys should be able to see the brackets. If you can't see them yet, then we'll make sure that that's sorted so that it's available for public view. We are going to table the results and put Discord links for the games and screenshots for all of the different brackets. Kevin, the dates are from the 25th of July. That's our first competition game. I think Goblins in 10v10, not 20v20. Leave Goblins as a 20v20 team. However, let me go back and check this just now. So yeah, answer to the first question. 25th of July is our first competition weekend. So that is game day 1. There'll be a game on the Saturday and the game on the Sunday. Be lightweight on the Saturday, middleweight on the Sunday. Bear in mind, it's partially based on the level of input that we have from our staff team. It will be on an ad hoc basis if we potentially have the means to get more games on any given weekend. Now, obviously that is based on timing and based on the availability of any team to want to do a game on a day where they might not have been expecting one. We want to try and keep it so that the league finishes with all brackets on the same weekend, rather than having the competition drag on for one bracket more than others. But if we can facilitate more games happening, then we will. Are the scenario dimensions adapted to the bracket, for example, CQB for 10v10? The scenarios are separate for both divisions. 10v10s are going to run on Ireland, 20v20s on Everon. So it is going to be different sets of points. There will be less points to cap on a 10v10 than there will be on the 20v20, and the maps will be completely different in terms of their layout. So I hope that answers your question. It's not going to be the same competition as it is for both brackets. I'm just going to go back and read this chat here and see if there's anything else that I'm missing. Give me one little sec. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions they would like to pose to myself or other members of the staff team just now? Please feel free to write in the announcement stage VC chat if you have any questions that you want me to answer just now, and I'm going to take as many questions as I can manage. I'll go back and read the fucking hell. That's a lot of GIFs. That's a lot of GIFs, man. Also, if you can see the points that we have for the 20v20 Everon scenario, Hyper has posted those. It's a little screenshot that he's just made. I'll bump this. So for you guys that have been maybe a bit confused or wondering as to what the map was going to look like for Everon, that is what we have just now in terms of the points. clue? Will we be having a map layout available for viewing and or like a practice server to request and use? Yes. Map layouts are, and I'll say this just now again, we have had issues within the staff team with availability, which are all perfectly understandable based on absences to do with real life requests and stuff like that. The scenarios for the server should have been deployed by now in an ideal world, but we don't have the server configuration ready just yet. We're anticipating that this is going to be in the next 2 or 3 days. And we need to make sure on our end that that works as well, because we have practice matches that we need to obviously put in place to make sure that our mod set and these scenarios are working to everybody's satisfaction. So practice server, our server will be available 24/7. We have 2 servers actually. We're going to have a scrim server that can be used by anybody at any stage if they want to come in and just have a fight. And we're going to have the main competition server. So that's going to give you guys the ability to have somewhere in case you don't have the means to rent your own private servers to run our setup. So I hope that answers your questions. Ghost, are the dates locked in or can they be moved? Thinking the dates for the time being are pretty much locked in. Once the season gets rolling, we're going to run games every weekend. Anything to do with changes to the games that are available will be something that the staff have to handle on an ad hoc basis. But effectively from the 25th of July, there's going to be at least 2 games every bracket, or each bracket rather, each weekend until we get to the end of the competition. So if we see this just now, for instance, our lightweight bracket, or sorry, middleweight, 8 games, aka 8 weekends, plus 4 games, 4 weekends, 50, 16, 17 weekends. So you are effectively talking just over 4 months till we get to the end of the league. If and when we can manage to possibly bring the length of the competition down, then we will try to do so. But just bear in mind that this is something that will have to be worked between the teams on an ad hoc basis, also given the availability of our staff members to contribute. It would be great if we could get the season cracked out sooner, so that we can then move on to preparation for season 3 quicker, get more seasons per year. I think everybody would like that. More competition, more fun. That's exactly what we want to do, but it's just something we're going to have to manage with the resources we have available. Ghost, why is it not possible to get people from other teams to help your team? Just strictly for fairness, and we also have a free agents role for people that are on the server. If they would like to come in and join with a team, then you would make an introduction through the free agents role chat, and then you can be helping out whatever team you want. Now, we're trying to avoid the potential for people to sign on with multiple different teams and to be playing all over the place, which was one of the criticisms we had from season 1, where the perception was that certain people were helping teams more so than what they really should do. We have a free agents role here for a reason. We want to try and ensure that people who have not signed up with teams thoroughly have the opportunity to come in and help out. So the free agents are there to ideally suit your purpose. When will we get the ARCL mod pack? Soon. Trademark, very soon. Is there an opportunity for underdog teams? If a team is confident with 20 people, are we able to say yes to a team that wants to bring 30? I'm a bit confused as to the format of the question there. But if I read you right, they're able to say yes to a team that wants to bring 30. Yeah, so the teams that are drawn against each other will be fighting in the middleweight bracket at a 20v20 format. If one team has the ability to bring more players, then they can ask the other team if they have the ability to do so as well. If the other team doesn't have that ability, then it stays at a 20v20. If they can agree upon a set number for each team, then that's the number that the game will be played at. Add ATAX map to ARCL mod pack. All right, we'll put that in the suggestions. Yes, yes. We had been looking at a fully integrated ATAC solution that would have completely replaced the in-game map system, but we saw it as maybe being surplus to requirements for this season. So that would have been the TDL mod suite, which has fully integrated. You can flip down the ATAC map and it's sitting there on your chest and all that kind of stuff. Some version of ATAC could be included. Yeah. Yes, there will be 2 champions, 1 for each set of brackets. Absolutely. Milky, yep. Match on Saturday, match on Sunday. If we can do more, then we certainly shall try. ATAC's map is the best form of planning, navigation, and communication. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. We are going to be including some mods for enhancing how the map marker system works as well. The in-game default map marker system is a bit clunky. It doesn't work the way you want it to, and it's also something which is client configured. So obviously, if you're going to lose connection, you lose all your minefields, as I'm sure you've encountered in a conflict game when you set up 500 AP mines outside a military base levy and you kill more teammates than you do enemy. So Anarchy markers, I believe it's called, will allow all of the markers that are placed by players to be saved in a client, sorry, in a server JSON. So if you disconnect, it's there, it's saved. Your whole team gets to see it. That also means that throughout the course of the game, you can add and delete markers as you go without relying upon one person having to maintain connection for vital information that's going to be imparted to the rest of the team. Radio backpacks command truck, negative. This was a holdover from season 1. We will be doing the same for season 2. There will be no radio backpack spawning and no command truck spawns available. Are teams able to elect into the other map if they really don't like the map for their bracket? Unfortunately not. The Everon and Arlen scenarios are being designed to reflect the size of the teams that are available. So if you're in the 10v10, Ireland, 20v20, Everon. It's been well stated for a long time that that's how the brackets were going to go. Obviously, if a team wants to make a point about it, then they certainly can, but that's effectively the way we're going to do it just now. Kevin, we do use RHS in the pack. Part of the concerns we've had from last season were the size of the mod pack and whether that was reasonable for console players. Now, we understand that Xbox have upped the mod download limit to 50 gig. PlayStation's not in the same boat. So we've had some internal conversations based on how we could include something that was an alternative to RHS, given that it is massively bloated. The decision that we've settled on would be that ability to technically craft a scenario which has a range of modern modded equipment and weaponry would have been too difficult to create at a late stage in the season to add something that was different. Also, if we don't include RHS, then we would be including something else that is effectively like RHS. A lot of you guys are going to play with RHS as default components of your modded servers. If any of you guys are WCS people or just about any modern custom modded server, I know a lot of you guys might not, but RHS is a relatively default expectation in terms of bringing a game up to a modern gameplay standard. To ask the teams to then download something else that replaced RHS on our server but didn't replace RHS on all the other servers you play on would have been adding bloat to your hard drives and would have been creating a situation where you had to go back and delete and reinstall things based on game days and stuff like that. What we're using just now is RHS, but a massively stripped down version of that. One of the complaints we had from last season was the excessive bloat deployed to the server. Circumstances kind of outside of our control, and weapons and equipment which had no place in a competitive environment. RHS, from what we can tell, is about as close as we're going to get to something which is reasonably balanced. Obviously, we can't just go back to playing straight vanilla. I don't really think anybody wants that. But RHS with many of the weapons stripped out so that when you're looking at the arsenal, there's only going to be a set amount of weapons per category that you want to use. You won't have 20 or 30 pages of sniper rifles. I feel like the team reps alone don't get enough engagement with the free agents base. Yes, North Korea. We will look to ping the free agents to ensure that they are actually still with us. And if there are free agents who have not had any activity on the server, then there's a chance we will be just getting rid of them, basically. We want to make sure that there's people there who are paying attention. And if you guys feel that you need a bit more input from free agents or you would like to have more conversations with them to make it easier to get people onto your teams, then we can look at that as well. We have someone who will be stepping up for us shortly, who's been working on some really funky Discord integrations for another server. and that will hopefully streamline the process so that you could click a button and automatically be directed to the team reps which are available based on time zone, region, language, and the bracket that you maybe want to play in. It's a work in progress. Someone has just stepped onto our team recently who has the experience with this. So we're waiting for his time to be available so you can contribute that. So it might be a mid-season addition, but it's not going to affect anything that actually happens on the server. Bambi, we can't really rotate the games in that manner because, whilst it would be great, if we were to run 1 hour per, then you're only really going to get to the point of teams basically meeting each other in the middle of the map before we, so all right, half time, and then we go on to the next part of the game. If we were to run something like a 3 hour or a 4 hour game, certainly a more feasible prospect. However, with a 2 hour time limit, for us to say half time and flip the teams over would be difficult. So I hope that answers your question. Lima Bravo, you can use the mods in the server that's already is running. Yep, we have a mod set already deployed to the ARCL server. We're just looking to finalize the scenario and the Arsenal configuration, and there may be a couple of last minute additions in there. One of the things we've been looking at for this season is the inclusion of vehicles that are not little birds. One of the complaints again from last season is that little birds are a bit spongy. Not good spongy, but they go down pretty easily. So armoured variants of aerial transport, Black Hawk helicopter, effectively. And that's again looking at what we have in terms of mods that are finished and can be deployed to a competitive environment. Reforger still a in development product. It's one of the reasons why we've had to hold up season 2 as much as what we have, is getting the shit of the 1.7 update out of the way. And we're still anticipating hot fixes for 1.7 in the next few weeks. That's not coming from any insider information we have, just the name of the game just now is they are consistently updating the engine. So part of that as well is making sure that we have mods that are consistent with 1.7 and mods that will actually stand the test of time in a competitive environment. So we've gotten rid of a lot of the armoured vehicles that we had from last season, and you're going to be seeing a much more streamlined vehicle configuration on the server as well, with a couple of additions here and there. Give us a few days until we lock that in. But it's all with the guise of ensuring that we have fairness and integrity and getting the teams both to have equal levels of equipment. There won't be situations where RU has stuff that NATO doesn't, and vice versa. Why you guy closed my ticket? I've got a nice proposal. Oh, right, okay. I didn't even see we'd closed your ticket, Ghost, but I'll go back and have a little look there in case there's been a mistake. Willy Wonka, no tanks, or really, I mean, heavy vehicles. The most, again, we're talking about would be armoured helicopter transport. We are still right in the middle of debating the inclusion of the LAV, would be the only heavy armour inclusion, and that's again due to game balance and propositions and how we would also include the LAV in terms of it not being something that can just be spawned by players. We don't want armoured assets to be something which are available in the way that they would be in a conflict game. You know, walk up to a heavy vehicle station and just get a vehicle. Most likely LAV spawns are going to be limited so that teams will know how many LAVs that they get per game, and they wouldn't be available at the start of a game. It would be at the 40-minute mark, for instance, where you would have then an LAV that would get dropped via script at a main base, and then that's going to open up tank play. We obviously had considered whether tank play was something we should have had at all. One of the issues with season 1, where we found like solo cowboys who love just sitting up hills with GLTVs, shooting people from fucking, 600, 700 meters away. It might be a legitimate form of combat in an open public conflict game. We don't really think that it fits the angle of competitive spirit or cool gameplay that we want to try and get for a competitive league. So GLTVs are gone, Typhoons are gone, LEVs are probably the only inclusion we're going to have, and even those will be under strict spawning conditions. Yep, Notorious, I hope that answers the question. Infinite Sharp, what is the prize, man? What is the prize? we will have, in the same way as we've got from Season 1, the winners of each bracket will have the ability to leave a lasting legacy on the server. Custom inclusion of a weapon or a patch or a uniform that you guys will be able to leave with us. In terms of anything more meaty than that, then all I can really do is, if you come to Scotland anytime soon, you're certainly welcome to come and sleep on my sofa for free. Trust me, we've got a lot of nice views around here. Maybe not in Glasgow, but Scotland in general is pretty nice. Runco, to an extent, we're still looking for GMs. Yes. If you would like to make a ticket on this server, if you would like to have a conversation with us about becoming part of the staff team, then I could have that conversation with you this evening, if that works for yourself. If not, at any other stage across the next maybe 3 or 4 days. Just let me know, dude, and I'll try and get you a little chat. Ghost B, yep, as I've said, helis. Helis are still there. No rocket helis, in case anyone's confused about the kinds of inclusions we've got. You will not be able to jump in an MIA and spam a point with rockets. Your helicopter variants are strictly for transport only. North Korea, little birds will be enabled on Ireland, from what I am aware. A man named Ghoul, building destruction, yes. Kevin, KTMS1, maybe GRS. Yep, we looked at GRS as inclusion. It would be great. The overall intent for the league is to try and reduce the scope of the mods that we've used. That's been part of what we've done for this season as well. We are not going full bore with excessive weapon mod packs or clothing. We're stripping it right back. Now, that still basically requires RHS to be some base component of the server deployment. But between that and the WCS editions, we're hoping that the server should be round about, I'm going to say 12 gig, maybe 13 gig. And I'm sorry, I should know that number right off the top of my head right now. I do apologise for not having the exact gigabyte number. It will be something which is set over the next few days. But certainly for next season, we're looking at, again, reducing the scope of the mods that we have once again. And that's with a view to making sure that the players here can participate in the league whilst also playing on their favourite community server and hopefully not having to go through and constantly re-download and delete things all the time. Balancing or rule changes being planned. Rule balancing changes affecting the matches 2 hours later, or will there be a grace period? Everything to do with our view on how rule changes are affected and operated should be within all of the code of conduct and policy pages on our server. So if you go up to the Welcome Center, Bambi, you should see rules for all of that mentioned in those channels. So no GLTV because they're kind of broken. BTR, we're thinking really, once we have the LEV in place, then I don't really know that there's much need for a BTR or a BMP. Again, BMPs are modded vehicles. BTRs obviously aren't. But if we have an LEV that's included for both teams, then that is your armored option, you know? Bring back the semi-automatic grenade launcher. Oh yeah, big booms. Yeah, I love a big boom. Yeah, so Innocence made a good point here. GRS requires stuff like Bacon. The Bacon loadout editor is just grisly, man. So we don't want to really include that. The WCS loadout editor works just fine. And also, actually, comes into our... So I'm going to use this opportunity to big up something else which has been made for us on our ARCL hub page. So again, guys, if you're looking at the stream just now and you are not aware of the fact that we have a custom loadout saving solution for Season 2. So this might be, for some teams, surplus to requirements, but it's going to make things a lot easier for team leaders to set loadouts for their squad based on individual needs. Now, of course, every team still has the ability to make their own loadouts when they join the server in the exact same way you would with any other WCS server. But this system allows the loadouts to be deployed without your individual input. Now, there might be a whole bunch of use cases for that, but let's say you're screaming home from work and you know you've only got 10 minutes before you need to jump into the server and play your game. You don't have the time to set up your loadout. Doesn't matter, because one of your teammates has possibly set up a loadout for you to use from the ARCL's website. So right now, because we're obviously not at game phase yet, the loadouts we have are a bit silly. Let's say, for instance, we've got aliens, banana. So if you like explosive bananas, then we have a loadout just for you. So what will happen here is a loadout has been saved using a link between your in-game profile and Discord, which then tracks onto this website. You save a loadout in the server, then leave the server. And then you can create the description of the loadout in the website here and connect it to one of your loadout slots in-game. That then publishes that saved loadout onto this website where anybody can copy the loadout template and put it onto one of their 4 available loadout slots. So allows for much more granular control by the squad leaders to make sure that their team is running some kind of setup that works and allows you guys to all be on the same page. We would like it if you guys would use that system as much as possible to make sure we've squashed any bugs that might be part of the system. We've done our own testing in the background, but if you want to use that, that's perfectly available for you guys to use this season. Oh, slight frustrations having his wedding. Well, congratulations on getting married, dude. That's all I can say, mate. Lovely stuff, mate. Big fucking round of applause, dude. All right. So, what have we got here? If you can fight on August the 9th, we'll get to that in a private ticket with yourself, Mr. Dino Man. We'll have a chat. Okay. Yes, easy money. So we have our own custom built anti-cheat solution for this season. So I might be able to show some of the back end that we have. So this is just a little sneak peek. There we go. Anti-cheat investigation. So this is all pulling for the in-game metrics. As you can see, we obviously have lots of cheaters in our GM team. Uh-oh. So this pulls from in-game data to give us elevated profiles of individual players based on anything that they're doing in the server, which constitutes bad behavior. ESPs, unnatural movement patterns is all captured, and you're then given a risk profile, which we can then look at. The risk profile will increase the more bad behavior you commit, and we can then control what actions we use against you in this page. So we can kick you straight from here, or we can register as false positives. And that's obviously going to allow our game masters to see the players that we have to keep an eye on before we even know we have to keep an eye on them. So I hope that answers your question, but we have our own anti-cheat solution in place for this season. Kevin, yep, I think I answered that already. There will be helis in Ireland. Yep. The flying potato is really crap. Yep. You won't even have the flying potato, dude. It's not a case of RU having access to bare RU equipment. Both Russia and NATO, or blue team and red team, will have the Little Bird and the Black Hawk available to use. So that will be your defaults. You're not going to be flying in the MI8, which I would, it's more like a bathtub than a potato, really, but I do hear what you're saying. Prize rope dropping would be a really cool, snazzy addition to have for the server. There may be issues to do with physics synchronization with the ropes as they're used, from what I can see on other servers. It's a cool addition, but I do not think it is finalized enough to justify having it in a competitive environment. Sandy, there very well may be that option for free agents. We don't want to lock people that have only joined the server to occasionally play one game or so into being a part of a team. But at the same time, there has to be some expectation that the teams that have got free agents can actually rely upon them if so required. I'm guessing that's going to be something which is handled in individual conversations between teams and free agents. So, good question though. I'll go back and take that back to the staff team. Easy money, yes. The ARCL's anti-cheat is a mod that will be downloaded the same way as many other mods of that kind are. So it will be installed in your computer. No data is collected beyond what we use for the purposes of detecting bad behavior in games. But there will be a privacy statement on our website to ensure that we comply with any aspect of GDPR. Any advantage or disadvantage if there are PC players going against console players? So it's the same as what we had last year, barring a few unfortunate mishaps. That grass distance will be locked to 150 meters. Distant shadows will be locked on. And there will most likely be a reduced render range that is not the same as the network render distance. That's just to match up with the fact that console players are limited in terms of what they can see. Now, it looks like in 1.7, there has actually been some work to enhance the network render range for console players. I've not done enough testing to tell you exactly what it's went up to, but seemingly there's been big improvements in terms of where you can see people out to on the games. So there will be settings in place to make sure that PC players do not have an unfair advantage. Grass will be locked and distant shadows will be locked. Yep, sorry, I've just answered that question again. Easy money sniper. Here we go. Graphic settings will be locked to some extent. Mark, I've got, mate, anybody can stay in my sofa, mate, anytime, man, you know. But I mean, Govern's, yes, it's not the nicest place to be, I get you. But you only just jump on a bus and that's you.
Right, that's right. Yeah, at least you'll get some entertainment in Govan.
Yeah, just a
You
wee
get some
bit, mate.
entertainment.
First person only, no third person whatsoever. There will not be any instances where people can use that to their advantage. Arma vision will be completely disabled, so you can't cheese your way out of looking at a bush or anything like that. Stingers, iglas, so far as I'm aware, they are included. Question marks as to the javelin's inclusion, but anti-air will be available, as will anti-tank options. And we're not, as far as I'm aware, going to be as strict as WCS standard servers when it comes to being able to save anti-tank options to your loadout. So I hope that answers that question to some extent. Lethe, Roger, got you there, dude. Oh, fucking hell, I've only made it halfway down here. I see that everyone else is answering questions. I'm probably just talking away and all you guys have already heard it. Well, it's me just talking to myself.
Yeah, no problem. I think there are a few guys who want a third-person thing for vehicles pod. So maybe we could make a poll and just let the people vote about it.
Yeah,
I
there's a
think
chance.
that's a smart move.
Yeah, here's a chance. What will happen if a server crashes, right? So, Hammer of Bald, it's dependent on the length of the game up until that point, right? We don't want to have to run restarts that are with a game that's already been an hour in. If it's a server crash issue, then of course we'll take all the instances of how we can approach that into account based on how progressed the game is. But last season, for instance, if we had a server crash within the first half an hour or so, then we just run it back. If there's a server crash to the point where it means that the game is no longer playable based on people's availability, then we would look to reschedule the game for another date. It's not an ideal solution, of course, but again, it's just the nature of Arma just now. I think we're in a, this is again part of the reason why we want to reduce mod set. We have to reduce the instances of us having to come back and run several different games for the one bracket game. So again, if you look to the code of conduct and policies, match setup and rules policies that we have in the Welcome Centre, they probably provide you a bit more clarity on that subject. Slight frustration, yep. if you would bring the same amount as what your opposition can bring. If you're capable of fielding 30 and they can field 30, then you field 30. If they can only field 25, then you can field 25. Run it like that. Unfortunately as well, I don't know if you've caught this at the start, but Mr. Dino Man, we've had to place the heavyweight teams in the middleweight bracket due to issues with aligning the brackets properly. We didn't have enough participation in the heavyweight bracket, and the middleweight bracket was the ideal choice for you guys. So basically what we're saying is the middleweight teams have the option at any time to field more players in their games as long as the opposition team is capable of doing so. So basically it becomes a 20v20 minimum. And then the option is there to field bigger teams based on whether you guys can get more players in the games. That's going to be something that you work out between the teams as you go. Lima Bravo, again, dude, if you want to open, if you're still in here, Lima Bravo. Yep, I see you. If you want to speak to us about becoming part of our GM and staff team, you're more than welcome to make a ticket on this Discord, and we'll speak to you from there. Gamma abuse is not something which we think will happen, as the games are going to be locked to like midday, basically. So if you're gamma abusing in the middle of the day, then hell mend you. But there won't be instances where players have an advantage because of anything to do with late nights or night vision goggles or anything like that. The live tactical map. Well, okay, that's a live tactical map. Here we go, bro. We're plugged in through TAC Ops. So we can see in the games, everyone, where you are on the map, what you're doing, what point is being capped, and what team it belongs to. And that then also ties in with the anti-cheat system so that we can see the signals popping up in-game. The SAT map that we're using has been kindly provided to us by TAC Ops. So that's, obviously you can see, pretty well detailed. It is effectively just a screenshot of the game, right? So this is going to allow us to have much finer control over who's doing what and where. And that will be something that the commentator, aka Task Force Gaming, is going to have access to. So he'll be able to pull that up and have it running alongside the stream. So you'll see the 2D representation of the game at the same time as the game is being played. We're also looking at including a mod. It's not even a mod really, it's a server-side integration called Ops Track, which will provide a full 2D viewable timeline of the game from start to finish. You click the play button and you see everybody moving, where they moved, what they did. You'll even see individual projectiles being fired, so you'll be able to tell who fired their gun and where. That's obviously for squad leaders to go back and assess their performance in the games and make any criticisms or evaluations of how they're going to get better. But it's not something we've integrated yet. Seems like a pretty simple one to do, so we're hoping to get that running before the season goes live. And then it will just be a case of when we share the finished games, then we'll be able to say, this happened tonight. There's your stream from Task Force. Here is possibly a readout as to any anti-cheat behavior that we detected, our assessment, and then there will be the ops track, which will just be a simple link that you click that will take you onto the ops track website. Then you just play the stream at the same time as you play ops track, and you'll be able to watch the entire thing unfolding in 2D and 3D. Yes, it's sexy. It's absolutely sexy. Slight frustration. Are you paying for all of us to come to your wedding? Oh, that's a yes. There is no justification for the third person with vehicles or first person for infantry. The only difficulty that we have is that based on the fact that there's no in-game working mirrors. So with Arma 3, they even had that picture-in-picture mode so you could see what was happening behind you. In-game right now, we just have the borked WCS edition of you click the window and it basically completely takes you outside of your body to look behind you. That would be the only instance where we consider that those tools aren't usable enough for the players and they would use third person. I know some servers like to lock it so that third person is only available for helicopters, but there isn't really a use case for us to say that we would want to have third person being involved at all. That's not something we want. All right. Or if we do, maybe we do poll it. Yeah, let's see. NND Bravo, yep, you can save loadouts in-game and load those loadouts into your loadout slots using a website.
All right, we're back. All right, so I think I'm gonna do. That ran way longer than I thought it was going to. I didn't know that they were gonna field questions for 40 minutes. Try to work in some of my personal, since I guess we were doing it, good kind of questions about the season, and then I realized that I was kind of asking off-color things that didn't really have anything to do specifically with the brackets, so I tried to slip in a couple of those questions. I've got some notes from kind of what was asked and things that came up. And then, if you're clicking ahead, obviously, if you're at the start of the video, you can kind of all set out chapters, so you can skip quite a bit of that if you want to go through and watch everything properly. That's fantastic. But for the people that just kind of want to skip that comment period where it was just reading off questions, then there's an opportunity kind of for that. So I've got an issue with how they're looking to handle the heavyweight options for the middleweight bracket. And I really I typed half of this out and then really kind of tried to dig deep to be able to articulate what I was feeling there. So hopefully I can kind of do a decent job. I think that there's something. What is a tournament? What is a tournament within a competitive context or a framework? It's everyone dealing with kind of the same tools and the same options to see how they stack up. I think that there's an issue there that arises when you allow some teams to elect into a different experience than everyone else, to work with different tools within that bracket. So even though they're talking about, if I've got a group and we can do a 30v30 and I'm matched against a team this weekend that has also said that they could do a 30v30, I don't think it's fair to anyone else in the bracket, especially from like a beginning stage. I don't think it's fair to let us alter our experience for our match, because we're moving forward at that point in a different way than everyone else is moving forward. If it's the finals and it's the end of the bracket and it's this team versus this team and they want to do like a 40v40 or something like that, I don't think there's necessarily an issue with that. But especially at the beginning of the bracket, I think that you're opening yourself up to like a weird dynamic that just doesn't logic well. So if you kind of think about it, if they're not, how do I say this in a way that really kind of doesn't lose people and makes sense? If you're not properly scaling, so if you're allowing for this dynamic where some people can bring, some matches can feature extra people, but you're not altering the framework of those matches to account for that, right? So they've said that the 10v10 bracket is going to be Arland and it's going to be a smaller map with fewer objectives. And then 20v20s is going to be Evron with more objectives to fight over or a larger footprint to fight over, you would suspect. They haven't officially come out with the layout pictures, so you don't quite know what you're working with, but there's an issue there because you understand that the objective and footprint on offer between the 10v10 and the 20v20 bracket sizes needs to change, but you're not doing a similar change for 20v20s or 30v30s or higher. So that means that you just think about it philosophically. The more players that you have on each team in a match, means that you need less skill per capita in those matches. So if I was playing a match this weekend with 20 people against another, team's 20 people, and there were 7 objectives to fight over, but it was in a linear fashion, right? I'm defending an objective, and then I'm attacking an objective. They're doing the same thing. If that plays differently, and I need fewer clutch moments, fewer opportunities for skill on display, if I now go, well, I've actually got 30 people that I can bring to this weekend, and the other team says, like, oh yeah, I can do the same thing. Well, there aren't additional objectives to fight over. The map isn't larger. So I can just now throw more bodies at the center objective than someone, elsewhere in the bracket can that's participating in the 20v20s. So that additional 10 players could be, even if they're all low skill players, right? If I have my best 20 guys that are signed up, and then I've got an additional, 10 people that really aren't good on my team, but, they want to participate, and we're working on them, and whatever. So even if that disparity between 20 and 10 isn't like a radical increase in skill, I now have 10 additional people that will feed into the dynamic of 3v2s, 3-on-1s. That's opportunities to throw, that's 10 people that I can spread out onto an objective all at once. I can have them all snipe. I can have them all sit in a corner. I can have them all sit in bushes. And now I can control ground that I wouldn't otherwise be able to control. I can have more people that can die on an objective. And I'm still holding on to it. I think that there's an issue there. Again, if you're not if you're not accounting for those additional players, and only some people can do it, obviously, technically speaking, anyone could do it. If I'm signed up for a 20v20 and I really only have 20 guys, I could find 10 mercs and then go to the team this weekend and say, like, hey, you want to do a 30v30? But not everyone's going to do that. Let's be real. And so technically it could happen. Technically, I could go, win the lottery right now, but I fucking won't. Yeah. There's a really weird, wonky thing that can happen here. Again, that's the best way that I can explain it. It adds like a dynamic to what should be my 20 guys against your 20 guys. That's what we signed up for. And now, 3 days before the tournament, we can just throw that into a weird dynamic. It makes sense, and it's reasonable that within the context of your match against that other team, I can't say, hey, I've got 30 guys, I'm going to bring them, and then that other team's like, well, I can't do that, I've only got 20 guys, and then they're just fucked. I can bring my 30 and they can bring their 20. But that dynamic should kind of be even across the bracket. Something there just doesn't sit right. And then my second issue there, or within that, is to be fair, just to devil's advocate my own talking point, just for parity, for consistency. If you already aren't accounting for skill disparities within the bracket, you're just separating 10v10s and 20v20s, it's kind of not actually an issue, because there are 5 other things that are issues. It's also not an issue if you already aren't restricting against, large-scale free agent or merc deployment, or huge team swaps, right? Because currently, as I understand it, the only rule for Season 2 that restricts against who can play where is if you are hard set as someone, I'm on this team, I'm on GSA, and we're elected into the tournament. I already played in my match for, the first set of games. I can't go and play with another team. I can't fill in with another team because I'm already legitimately participating in, the tournament. That doesn't mean, though, that's kind of the forest through the trees. That doesn't mean that I can't replace half of my team with people that just decided that they couldn't make numbers for this tournament. They wanted to participate, but they just can't, So if you're already not, if you've already said that you don't really care about that's not a concern, then I suppose that, like, the lopsidedness of, like, well, we're set to play against this team starting out, and I think that they're really good. We're doing 20v20s. Maybe there's an advantage in going to them that they aren't thinking about. Maybe they don't have the pulse on their team and their guys quite like we do. Or we're going to ask, hey, we've got 25 people that we can bring to this match, or 30 people that we can bring to this match. You want to do that instead of a 20v20? And I could know from, like, a strategy perspective that they've only really got like 15 good players. So making them or getting them to add an additional 15 players means that you're diluting down a lot of the skill. Now, if they push 10 people towards, offense on an objective or something like that, there's a really good chance that maybe there's only like 1 or 2 good shooters now in that offense because you've diluted down kind of what's on offer. It just weird. Again, like, I'll probably get some weird, like, backlash for that opinion, but it's there. And even if I'm not really able to articulate it the best way, I feel like time is going to bear out that I'm kind of right on this regard. My second issue is armor balancing. So towards the end of, like, the comment and questions section there, they brought up the lav is likely going to be the only armor piece that either team can work with. I've got considerable potential issues here. Also, you're just now getting this is like a core fundamental philosophical what are we doing for this season question that should have had a hard answer weeks ago. This isn't reliant on can you get a mod to work. You're talking about, I would assume, the base game lav. So there's really not a whole lot. It's not like, well, if we're able to add the Bradley before the season starts, or if we don't have any, like, scripting issues or asset issues or anything like that, then we want it to be part of the season. You're talking about something that it's already in the game, So this should have been set out long ago. You should be thinking about the balancing that you're going to showcase or feature for season 3, arguably right now. But, whatever. Because if I have a team that does armor stuff, I have to start evaluating what scrimmages am I going to do against which teams to accentuate, like, which training points. My armor game for my team is pretty weak. You need to know, kind of broad strokes, what you need to train up for or address months before the tournament. Because what if everyone was under the idea that armor was going to be BTRs and lavs, and people, have spent the last 3 weeks going, wow, we really suck with the BTRs, so we're going to spend most of our time with those, only to find out that, like, all that time has now been wasted because the only armor that's going to be in the game is going to be the lav. So there's an issue there. I would also offer, they mentioned when they were kind of commenting about it that they kind of on the fence with doing lavs because they don't really believe that they're balanced. I would actually argue, not from my perspective, but from, like, a community or a tournament perspective, based on what they've said about other things, the lavs are actually incredibly balanced. Because you aren't restricting who's carrying a rocket launcher, right? So if I go into the match this weekend and I know that the enemy team could just be flush with lavs, right? If I know that in a 20v20 there could be 6 lavs on the map. They've already said that they're not going to restrict teams on like how many roles there are, how many snipers there are, how many light machine gunners there are, how many helicopter pilots there are, right? So half the team that I'm playing against, I could attack an objective that has 5 pieces of armor on it, and each one of those could actually just be one-manned, right? The lav is pretty balanced because in a similar manner, everyone can be an AT gunner. So I don't really understand why they're fluctuating or they aren't certain on whether that's going to be included or whether that's going to be well balanced. If everyone everywhere can carry a rocket launcher, the armor doesn't really mean anything. So, there are things with the lav from like a philosophical perspective outside of that that are unbalanced, but that's less to do with the lav and it's more to do with like what you're shooting, or like other things. Is third person for vehicles going to be allowed, but first person isn't allowed for infantry, or third person isn't allowed for infantry? Well, if you can have third person for vehicles and I am an armor guy, I never actually have to manage my space. I never actually have to move around. Because if I'm the driver, I'm just constantly doing 360s and spinning my fucking camera. And then I'll see a pixel that doesn't look right, or I'll see the guy that just is about to, crest the hill behind me or whatever, and I'll just tell the gunner and we'll schwack that guy before he can even get a rocket off, right? There are things outside of like the lav literally that will affect the balance and viability of armor in general. And I'd just like to go into, I've mentioned it in a podcast episode before, but armor complaints typically come from like 2 philosophical places. First of all, armor complaints come from infantry and helicopter players, right? Not from other armor players. So just get that out of the way. So if you would like to prepare you're just salty because you don't play armor, oh, get better. Oh, if you don't like that armor there, then your team should have brought an armor piece in a similar manner. Cool. That's all. Just, I get it. Moving on. 2 philosophical main places, right? Most of the complaints, yeah, helicopter players are going to complain about it, especially in a context or an environment where helicopters don't really have guns. The pilots don't really have guns or rockets. But infantry play is where you're going to get most of the annoyance. And a lot of that annoyance is based on real stuff. There's the first kind of philosophical area where there's an issue is it places restrictions on infantry agency and being able to deal with the armor. And then the second place that it comes from is indirect damage, right? If you don't have the positioning and an RPG to deal with an armor piece, you're stuck just like not playing the game. You're either waiting to die or you're waiting for someone else to deal with the problem. And if you're in a competitive context, scrimmages and for sure tournaments, that just feels fucking shitty, right? If not every single person on my team has an RPG, or if I just don't generally, if everyone has an RPG but no one has good positioning, right? At the beginning of the game, right? If there's a center objective and both teams kind of rush into the center objective, but one team brought an armor piece, the other team just brought infantry. The team that didn't bring armor takes the objective, but now they're in the middle of the objective, hiding behind buildings or walls, so that way they don't die to the armor. Yeah, every infantry guy there can have an RPG, but if you peek out to get a shot on the armor, you just die, right? That sucks. That's a shit experience. And especially in a game where a lot of that like infantry against armor against infantry relationship is unbalanced from maps that are like just really open. Every objective's on like the side of a hill or in a clearing or something like that. There's no great ways. They're talking about the 20v20s are going to be on Evron. Even if they make their own, even if they place their own custom objectives, you're still dealing with the map of Evron, right? So there's typically no great way, unless you really go through off the rip, to deal with it or account for it. There's no great way to like break up sightlines and stuff, so you're gonna get armor. It's not that armor is gonna drive into the objective and start fragging stuff. It will be that armor is sniping from 2,000 meters away and no one on the objective can do anything, right? So there's like a positioning and an agency issue there. The indirect damage on the same like grounds really sucks as well. Indirect damage means that further fed by like, well, I can't even peek the corner, I can't even round the building, I can't move around or do anything because I'm just gonna die from the armor that like can't do. That's further fed by like that armor piece, if they include explosive rounds, right? I would assume that they will, because that's why they chose the LAV instead of the BTR. The LAV just comes with explosive rounds, and the BTR you have to like load those in. It's my understanding that the LAV explosive rounds are better than the BTRs as well. That armor piece never has to see you, ever. It's like dying to a guy that has 300 RPGs, because that guy won't kill you because he straight up hit you. He'll kill you because he spammed every window in your building, every doorway, every corner. There's no knowledge that's required beforehand. He'll hit every sandbag wall, every tree, every bush. He won't need to know that you're there, and he often won't even need to actually hit you, because you'll just die because a round exploded at your feet or like right next to you. That also feels like fucking garbage as an infantry player. I would argue that you can apply that philosophy and that feeling on a much larger level to all explosives in the game, right? The GLs suck because you're like 3 incentives away from people just using the Grenadier role as indirect mortars, right? So you could die. It just doesn't suck right now because people aren't currently doing it, in the same way that in the ordinary vanilla game, there's technically nothing that's stopping everyone from running light machine guns with no recoil and tracer ammo, and just laser beaming everything from like 3 miles away, just because people aren't doing it. People haven't decided to do it. Same thing with GLs. A guy could pre-position in a certain area on a certain map, in the same way that like it's not hard. If you think about where like kind of smoke and grenade setups probably came from CSGO, just like throwing shit at walls and seeing how they bounced off and stuff like that, you can die and have, skill didn't matter on your part just because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You could do that with Reforger. You could set up behind a berm or behind a wall or in this area of town, and you know that if you aim at this roof, you can get all of your rounds to hit with 100% accuracy where you want them to on the ordinary objective. Well, that feels like fucking shit. If I die to that, what was there to learn from that? I couldn't do anything. And I think that you just see that example better on display when it comes to like armor in these matches. Now, personally, I think that armor, same way with mortars, should have a place in these matches. However, that's within my personal framework or context or wants of like, yeah, but you would have to overhaul everything else that the game fucking sucks at. You would have to completely change the incentive structure, right? No exploding rounds. If you killed that guy in that bush, it's because you saw him move and you hit him, like actually, with a bullet. You didn't guess. You would have to greatly reduce the amount of ammo that all of these armor pieces carry, right? You shouldn't have 3,000 rounds between, a coax and your main gun. And then also, third person should be fucking abolished as a standard. That should never, ever, in an infantry context, in a helicopter context, in an armor context, that should never exist in this fucking game. If you have an opposing opinion, I guarantee that you just haven't thought about it for long enough, right? This competitive framework, or this, this thing as a process really only exists in a balanced fashion if it's me against you. Well, if I have no opportunity to see you or kill you or see what you're seeing, what the fuck are we doing, right? That's why third person from an infantry perspective feels really bad, because I never actually had to know that you were there on an objective. I hid behind a wall and set my camera up so that way I could see you running on the other side. And then I just waited for you to face away from me, and then I popped out around a corner, right? Are you saying that that doesn't exist for a vehicle? And then are you saying that the impact of that for a piece of armor, that then not only doesn't need... I can sit behind a berm, or I can position myself on the other side of a wall so you can't hit me. I can shut off my engine, so hypothetically you could not know that I'm there. Same thing with distance, right? And then I can kill you without actually killing you, because I got my rounds to explode like right on the corner that you're at. Yeah? You're not seeing the disparity there? Kind of the lack of, like, underlying shared logic? Don't get it. I didn't put it down as a note, but I had asked about, because I've gotten the feedback from every single person that I've talked to that's participated in Season 1, that rule changes like hours before your match completely fucked certain matches. They would remove vehicles and weapons that you'd been practicing with for forever, all the way up until the season started, plus your progress, halfway through the season. They would just remove them like a day or even hours before your match. And all of the examples that I had heard of them doing that were with stuff that should have been felt out well before the match, right? You can tell before the season starts that these 3 weapons are the most overpowered fucking things on offer, right? 1 hit kill, 30 round RSASs, right? That have full auto. So there's no skill required. You are just a laser beam when you round a corner or shoot through a door or something like that, right? And there's no restrictions on how many mags you can carry, so you just make sure that you carry 20 magazines. All right? You couldn't forecast that before the season started, so I had asked about that, if there was going to be like a grace period, like, hey, at the very least, if there's an incredible issue with like the map or a weapon or a vehicle, is there going to be like a grace period, like, hey, 24 hours notice, like, hey, everyone that's playing in 24 hours, this is the rule change and this is why it's going to happen. But you that have a match in an hour, just do as you were kind of going to do, right? And the devil's advocate of that position is that if there's something that's actually properly imbalanced, like if there's a weapon that, it's a 1-hit kill light machine gun that got overlooked or something like that, and it's, breaking sort of like the standings in a bracket, there's a point to address that. But also, you're setting yourself in the same way that I said that, like, there's a potential for like a lopsided experience within the bracket if you allow, these 2 teams to bring 30 players into their match, but you're playing a 20v20 within the same bracket. Even if you never have to worry about that team, bringing that 30 players into your, match or your upcoming match, if you only want to bring 20, that it kind of fucks with the integrity of the standings, right, to a degree. That same thing is an issue. If you change up, like, oh, we just don't allow this weapon anymore, or oh, we're gonna take away this rocket launcher halfway into the thing. Well, people built their standings within the bracket off of those expectations and what was available there. So like you could completely fuck a team that like through no fault of your own, you allowed the weapons or you allowed an objective or an aspect to the map. You know, that there's a potential issue that that will come with that. I like to say that at the end of the day, tournaments are just casted scrimmages with like maybe some additional expectations that you wouldn't, you know, come into a scrimmage with. Everything after that is technically unnecessary. If you want to showcase like a different set of rules to allow for like a different, you know, balancing experience, hey, this bracket's only going to be infantry. We understand that a majority of the teams that would like to sign up would like to do armor stuff. That's specifically what this bracket's going to be. In 3 months, we'll do the mixed, you know, composition bracket where it'll be everything. But this, you can do that, but like that's not a requirement. You know, that's just something that you've decided to do that's extra. So what you need to do from like a tournament perspective is like integrity and communication. So if you change stuff in the middle of the season, even if it's for the good, you're always going to ruffle feathers and people are going to be like, what the fuck? Like, and it'll always seemingly be with stuff that that was known or there was an opportunity to know that beforehand. Like, hey, the best example that I could give is like with the armor in third person, right? If every single match in the bracket, every single team goes, hey, we're only going to play armor. At no point, aside from like if we're capturing an objective, will anyone be outside of a vehicle. So the beginning of the match is just people rushing into the center objective with 20 lavs, right? And everyone is hiding behind buildings. They're basically playing War Thunder. Everyone is hiding behind buildings or berms and waiting for the enemy armor piece in front of them to look in a different direction, and then they'll pop up and kill the enemy armor, right? So everyone's abusing third person. They would probably go through, you know, after that happened 3, 4, 5 times, and they would go, hey, this can't be what the tournament's about. We're going to change this so that way people actually have to play like the main aspect of the game, which should be infantry play. Well, rightly so, everyone that's participating would be like, it's not our job to think about that before the season comes. You provide the limitations and we work to those limitations, right? That would be ordinary, reasonable criticism, right? So I see, yeah, the main complaint again that I've gotten about season 1 was not the unbalanced weapons. It was the rule changes to address unbalanced weapons halfway through the tournament, right? It was like, hey, you know, we found out 30 minutes before our match started that now we had to do a mod update and we had to address all these different things. I never heard people admit, every time I talk to people that participated in season 1, people admit that like there were definitely unbalanced weapons and everyone was using the RSAS instead of any other weapon, aside from like if you were a sniper role or if you had an RPG. But like I'd never actually heard like this fucked us over or like, hey, we had a serious issue with this. It was just sort of like, yeah, that was there, but like, so I see the same exact potential here in like an unprincipled stance on like integrity. Like, hey, we've really gone through and thought about everything that happened in season 1, and we're gonna do things absolutely better in season 2. But if there's something that we overlooked, then that's on us. We're not going to make that the team's problems. We're going to play that through, and then we'll just adjust course for season 3. I don't hear that. So that's potentially an issue. All right, that's going to be me for this. Like I said, I'll add chapters so that way people can skip around or whatever, since this is a significantly longer video than usual. Thanks for listening. If you did watch, I know that they're talking about coming out with like their own recording of the thing, but I figured that I would just do kind of like my duty or my opportunity to give my commentary or whatever. I didn't want to do like voiceover or live reactions while they were talking, because I wanted like a good differentiation between like what was a legitimate announcement and then what was kind of my opinion and stuff. So that's why there was kind of a pretty big space of nothing kind of engaging there. Thanks for sticking with me.